Thank you very much. Then I think we're ready to go. Welcome everybody. This is the 2021 Budget Committee meeting for September 15th. And yes, we're virtual still. I don't see any regrets from members of the committee, and we have a number of extra members of council here, so welcome everybody. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Don't see any. There are no consent items or confidential consent items. Today's item of discussion is an update regarding the 2021 budget. And we have a PowerPoint presentation which has been forwarded to members of council so that you can see it live as we go through it. And I believe we've got members of our finance staff here to present that. And Nancy Sully, are you going to be starting off, or is Catherine going to be starting off?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Catherine Hewittson going to start off.
Great. We look forward to the presentation.
I need my glasses. Good afternoon, everyone. So as you know, staff have been given the direction to keep the overall property tax increase for 2021 in line with inflation, which is currently forecasted at 1.7%. Based on the assumptions for the region education, the town's portion of the budget target would be 2.31%. Staff presented the preliminary 2021 budget in July, and based on the initial assumptions on how the pandemic may continue to impact operations, we projected an impact in the range of $9 million, and particularly for transit, recreation, building, and planning revenues. This did not include any mitigation options. Based on the preliminary budget, the forecasted tax levy increase on the town's share of the budget was estimated at 7.24%. In order to meet the guideline, mitigation options of approximately $10.2 million would be required to reduce the budget in line with the inflation target of 2.31%. At the July 7th Budget Committee meeting, Council approved the following motions. The key ones formulating the budget being that the policy of adding an annual 1% capital levy to the budget be waived for 2021, that the rates and fee increase for 2021 be tied to inflation, and that another Budget Committee meeting be set for today to receive an update. Waiving the 1% capital levy increase results in $2 million in savings to the 2021 budget. Therefore, the remaining reduction required at the beginning of the budget was $8.2 million. This was the starting point for the staff budget development in the beginning of July. Over the past several months, potential mitigation options have been explored in all departments, and particularly those most affected by the COVID impacts. In addition, reduction targets for town departments or particular budget line items have been examined. Efficiency savings from various service reviews identified and the potential use of reserves to offset temporary impacts have been considered. Finally, a further reduction in capital funding budgeted annually in the operating budget has been considered. In terms of capital, departments have been given funding envelopes and are focusing on high priority infrastructure needs. As noted previously, there have been several service reviews underway. The efficiencies identified through the reviews have been incorporated into budgets and continue to be incorporated into budgets as they are expected to be achieved. These include the facility service review, the recreation service review, the call center consolidation, and the fleet utilization study. In addition, departments are encouraged to continue to evaluate internal processes and look for efficiencies. Over the past few months, efficiency savings in the range of 1.5 to 1.8 million have been identified that would be expected to be achieved over the 2021 to 2023 budgets. Approximately 7 million in savings has been identified for 2021. However, tax stabilization funding could be used for the full 1.8 million in the 2021 budget as a placeholder for future year savings. Staff have also been working to identify one-time temporary mitigation measures to help offset budgetary pressures. While the departments most impacted by COVID-related revenue shortfalls will look for ways to mitigate, all departments have been given reduction targets to help ensure the tax levy increase is in line with the guideline. Particular focus has been on discretionary spending and areas that would have a minimal service impact. Options include one-time reductions to part-time or casual staffing, particularly in recreation and transit, temporary gapping of vacant full-time positions, partial year closure or reduced hours at facilities such as standalone arenas and facilities within schools, that being Kenoke, Maple Grove, and White Oaks potentially. Reductions in programming materials, fuel, utilities, and contracted services that are related to the COVID service modifications. Temporary reduction in contracted maintenance repairs and operational maintenance activities, and town-wide reduction in office supplies, professional development, and training. At this time, the anticipated temporary mitigation options total between 2 and 3 million. So a significant amount of work has been completed to date to mitigate the 2021 budget pressures. As a result, the total savings of 5.5 to 7 million have been found in budget reductions and one-time mitigation options. As a result, the preliminary tax levy increase of 15 million presented in July has been conservatively reduced to 8 or 9 million. In order to meet the 1.7 inflation target, further reductions between 3.2 and 4.6 million would still be required at this time. In addition to the continued work done by departments to mitigate the impacts of COVID, staff are looking corporately at options to bring the budget within the guideline. Council approved the use of the 2019 surplus or reserves to offset the impacts of the pandemic on the 2020 budget. Since that time, the town has received notification that we will receive 6.9 million in funding under the Federal Provincial Safe Restart Agreement, 2.4 million of which is for the transit stream and 4.4 million under the general operating stream. This funding will help significantly in offsetting the shortfall projected in 2020 and will reduce the need for reserves. This will leave the funding in the reserves, which could be used to offset the one-time 2021 budget pressures created by the ongoing pandemic. So staff are currently in the process of finalizing their budgets, and finance has begun to prepare for the program budget reviews with the commissioners. Executive management has several meetings scheduled in October to review the budget impacts and finalize the budget to ensure it is within the council guideline. This will be followed by budget committee meetings in November and December, with the release of the budget document scheduled on November 17th. And just for your information, these are the details of all the budget committee meetings set up. Council approval is scheduled for December 21st. And that concludes our 2021 budget update. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm imagining there might be some questions. I see Councillor Sandhu. I'll call on you first, and then we'll go through others. I think you need to unmute. You need to call in. Okay. We're playing using sign language here, and I'm hoping that there's, do you actually have the sign-in number to call in? Yes, no? We're going to have to come back to you, okay? I'm going to go to Councillor Chisholm, and hopefully we can figure out the electronics for you.
Thanks, Tom. Just a couple of quick questions. In the presentation, we're keeping at 1.7 for rates and fees. How does that relate to small fees like $50 and $60? 1.7 wouldn't seem to be efficient in going through the whole process of changing all those rates and fees for that percentage. It would be just nickels and dimes. What's the consideration for that one?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the 1.7% is a council motion, so we would expect that all fees be increased by the 1.7%, as much as it may be nominal in some cases. It would be a consideration of council to change from a different direction.
Well, I guess I'm not looking for a different direction. I think it's just probably some common sense here is that maybe we can, I know what council directive has been, but the consideration of having some flexibility for staff to maybe round up or round down with respect to these, because it will create sense on a percentage of some of the fees. It might be, say if it's $50, it'd be $50 plus 37 cents, whatever. I'm just making this up, but the reality of it is it's a lot of staff time and work to do that. So if there is some way we can consider that, the rounding up or rounding down for those type of what I call small revenue programs for consideration. Now, I don't know what the process, Mayor, you got your hand up, can you jump in here?
Mayor Burton, do you have something to add on this point?
Or Tom?
Oh, mute.
You also need to unmute.
Okay. All right. Well, as Catherine tried to explain, this committee doesn't make that decision. Council made that decision. And council has made that decision many times over the last few years, ever since we became aware that the effect of holding down inflationary increases to fees bumps up property taxes more, because there's only two places we can get our operating costs from. So it's all a spreadsheet. You just push go, and 1.7% of 50 is 85 cents. So it's $50.85. People pay by credit card. It's no muss, no fuss.
Well, I think it's a simplification, but however, I'll move on to the second question. Capital projects, will we be within the next reports or the reports coming down to have a list of those capital projects that have been delayed or pushed out?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are working on that, and we'll provide the impacts of deferring some of the projects in the November meeting.
Thank you.
Everything, Councillor Chisholm? Yep. Councillor Lishchyna, I think you're next. And then Councillor Sandhu, are you online as well now? Yes, she is. Okay, so Councillor Lishchyna, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that presentation. So I also have a question about the capital projects. In our normal process, every year through the budgeting process, we actually prioritize what our capital projects are. Because of what's happened in 2020 with COVID, I mean, a lot of those were taken off the list. So does that mean that we're now pushing them over, because they were still prioritized, is my understanding? Are we now pushing them to the 2021, so from the ones that should have been in 2020, or is there a different process being used?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the staff are looking at not only the projects that were deferred from 2020, and as well as potential projects that were already identified for 2021, and all of that is being prioritized together, and they're putting forward their highest priority needs between those two kind of areas.
Thank you. Sorry, my follow-up question to that is, I can't remember that list of projects as Councillor Chisholm has indicated here, but are there any capital projects that also have a partnership either provincially or federally with funds that we need to complete in order to be to access those funds?
Definitely the ones related to the transit infrastructure funding would be given a priority, as they will have timelines associated with that in achieving the correlating funding share. So those
Okay.
are being given
I'm glad
priority.
to hear that. Just that you wouldn't want to lose those opportunities. Thank you.
No.
And Councillor Sandu, are you online fully again?
Can you hear me now?
She is. Look at that. Welcome back.
The double mute when you're on your phone, I had no idea. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I have just a quick question, actually, on page 8. So I'm looking at the table there. My question is just around how we're looking at the efficiency. So from a facility review perspective, I'm assuming that staff is going to be prioritizing safety when it comes to facility review. And then the second piece of that is around the recreational services review around the youth centers. Can you help me understand, again, how the funding for the youth centers is going to be reapportioned when we look at this efficiency?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can answer to the youth center one. So a report was taken earlier on the year, and a majority of the part-time staffing that was related to operating that youth center will be reallocated to the various hubs to continue to provide the youth services within the hubs, but that actual facility would be shut down, saving the lease costs and utility costs and things like that. So the services will still be provided, but it'll be like a decentralized model.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And then the facility review question, it was just around safety.
Sorry, I didn't.
Sorry, the facility review question at the beginning, I know I asked him in quick succession, so I apologize.
I didn't hear what you said
I
about the
just wanted to
facility review
understand-
question.
Oh, through you, Mr. Chair. So the facility review, the savings that are being identified are efficiencies in the way that the facilities are maintained or operated. Safety, of course, will be a high priority and would not be impacted by any of the recommendations coming out of the review.
Thank you, Ms. Ellie. I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Any other questions? I see Councillor Lishchyna and Councillor Haslett-Theall. Councillor Lishchyna, do you want to ask a question? And I'll come back to Councillor Haslett-Theall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to confirm again, has the region already made the decision regarding the 2% for their portion? Or is that from previous years as well?
The region
Yes,
took.
we did.
Oh, I apologize.
Sorry. Yes, we did.
Yeah, the direction's been given, but of course the passing of the regional budget will happen concurrently with this one in December.
Thank you.
Councillor Haslett-Theall?
My question actually is a good segue from that. What discussion has occurred with the province and education around the zero that we currently show? Because I can imagine that zero is not an option for them given the investments that's having to be made in the school system.
Mayor Burton might have some background information on this.
Thank you.
In my discussions with Cabinet, they are looking at continuing to hold the line there. They have other sources of revenue. In fact, for many years now, education has been funded, the education portion of the property tax is not all the revenue that the province puts into education. There's been
It's funded out of general revenue, and
Yeah.
yes, they have this one dedicated thing, but it comes at, like you said, there's multiple sources.
Yeah, and the mayor's organizations have been talking about giving us more room there.
Okay,
We'll
glad I
see.
asked the question. Okay,
We'll see if we get there. But
thank you.
Okay? Are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions. And so I think we are ready to receive the report from our staff. Staff, as they've said, are continuing to work in the background to prepare the materials for the upcoming November release. And in the meantime, we're going to continue having discussions with others on the various topics. So we need a mover and seconder. Councillor Dudek has moved the receipt of the report. Councillor Sandu, is that a question or a seconder? Okay. That's a second of the two. Okay. Thank you very much. Then, are there any concerns, opponents of that? No, then it's carried and the item's been received. Are there any other questions or concerns about the budget at this point? I don't see any. Then that's all of the business before us. There's no confidential discussion items. And so we're adjourned. And thank you everyone for your attendance this afternoon.
Thank you.